Hello. Welcome back to another day of bedtime stories. I'm doing this live again because A, it's a good tester of our live capabilities, and B, it's also very nice from an uploading perspective. It uploads directly to Facebook after I'm done, and I can also download the video and upload it to YouTube right from my phone. So it's pretty great in that regard. So I'm going to be continuing reading, chapter 26 of Mr. Tweedy. First, I gotta find it. You know, you'd think I would have a bookmark for this book by now, but I don't. So here's chapter 26. That morning, we all slept very late. Not until 10 a.m. did Mr. Tweedy finally burst into song. The day was glorious, the air was warm and unbelievably dry, and once again I didn't have a bit of pain. Before breakfast, we all went out to explore the area. For the first time in ages, we were all strolling hand in hand. No crutches, no leaning upon the children, with a robin acting like a little clown playing in the sand, flying to and fro. Coming in for a surprise landing on a head or shoulder, a happier quartet couldn't have been found. Not until noon did we finally leave the area. The car started beautifully. The brakes worked beautifully. Traveling 35 to 40 miles an hour, we soon reached the Verde Valley safely. When I saw the highway leveling off, I could have sung for joy, but the children were talking a mile a minute. They were already planning another trip. As if by magic, the miles sped past. In no time, we were pulling into a trailer park in Phoenix, and no sooner had we reached the security of the driveway when the engine gave one last sputter and stopped. In a broken-down car, never was a family more jubilant. When a man from the park came over and asked if he could help, I thanked him but told him that there was nothing he could do. The car needed a new generator. Intrigued by our robin, the man stayed and visited with the children, and of course, in the process, learned everything, including our financial status. Obviously touched by my son's tale of horror and woe, he offered to look at the generator. Being a mechanic, he said he just might be able to fix it. With nothing to lose, I told him, "Be our guest. Be my guest," believing it was a waste of time. 1 hour later, our car was running perfectly. All the generator had needed was a new brush, to the tune of 97 cents. It seemed ironical that for the price within our means, we could have been spared the agonizing ride down the mountains. However, we had come to no harm, and the incident had introduced us to two wonderful people. When I phoned Betty, she and Bill came over with the air water cooler, set it up for me in the trailer, and showed me how it worked. All I had to do was make sure that there was enough water in it. During our 11-day stay in Phoenix, this cooler was the biggest blessing of all, for without it, the trailer would have been like a furnace and impossible to live in. As luck would have it, the parking space we were given for the trailer was directly across the driveway from the swimming pool, where the children and I spent the greatest portion of the day. This meant that Mr. Tweedy could keep us all under constant surveillance, whether he was inside or outside the trailer, and this seemed very much to his liking. Of course, he wasn't left alone constantly. In the early morning hours and late afternoons, the children played with him outdoors, but during the peak of the heat, while we were swimming, he remained in the trailer where the air was cooled and moistened. Despite the fact that he was the only robin in Phoenix, to my knowledge at least, he seemed perfectly happy, enjoying his trailer life as much as we did, making friends with all but one of the trailer folks, a young man who came over to help me put up an awning over the trailer door. Actually, it was rather comical the way Mr. Tweedy put up a fuss, scolding away as a young man climbed up to our little roof to secure the awning so the wind wouldn't tear it loose. In fact, he was such an ungrateful little robin, acting so naughty towards a helpful young man, that I was rather ashamed. "I don't know what ails him," I told the young fellow. "Perhaps the awning frightens him." Then, to try to make up for our robin's behavior, I invited the young man to eat with us. "Not with that bird in the trailer," he answered wryly. But if you'd really like to do something for me, I'd appreciate a ride to the bus terminal some morning. I'm thinking about visiting my sister in Texas." "Why, sure thing," I answered. "That's the least I can do for the help you've given me." The following day, once again, I saw the young man. He had stopped by to warn me about some thief who had been breaking into some of the trailers in the park, robbing the Coke machine, the laundry machines, and stealing things out of unlocked trailers, even in the daytime. Having heard only a little bit about this rash of robberies, I wanted to learn more. However, just at that moment, a dog came tearing through the park, chasing Mr. Tweedy, who had been playing in the sand some distance away where we were standing. Afraid that some harm might come to our little bird, the children and I hurried after him. However, before we took off, I asked my young friend to watch over our trailer until we returned. "Go on in and make yourself at home," I told him. "I'll be right back." Fortunately, it didn't take long to find Mr. Tweedy, who had escaped the dog. As happy as ever, he had found a shady spot behind a trailer some 300 feet away, and was merrily trying to find some worms. When the young man witnessed our approach, he hastily stepped out of the trailer, leaving the door open wide for Mr. Tweedy to fly in. "As long as he is inside and I'm outside, that'll suit me fine," he said jokingly. So rather than go inside the trailer, we stood in the park and talked for a while. Things were getting pretty bad, he told me. More robberies again last night, and he was sick of living in a place where you didn't dare leave your doors unlocked, even in the daytime. "I've just about had it," he said. "So I think I'll go down to Texas for a visit. I'll catch the early bus, if you could give me that lift to the terminal tomorrow." Having already told him I would, I assured him that I would be glad to return a favor. "Just rap on the door and wake me up." As soon as the young man left, I went into the trailer, donned my swimsuit, and then got into the pool. There were only a few days left before we planned to leave Phoenix and head across to California to visit my uncle. So I wanted to absorb as much sunshine as possible, swim as much as possible, and relax as much as possible before we resumed our journeying. Knowing what havoc the sun can raise with the human body, I should have known better than to spend hours swimming and floating around constantly in that part of the pool where there was no protection from the sun. However, this I did, and by nightfall I began reaping the benefits of my thoughtlessness. I was sick with fever from a sunstroke. I don't growl. When I got into bed, it was impossible for me to sleep. All I did was toss and turn, disturbing Kathy a dozen times or more. Then I'd sit up for a while and try to rest that way, but to no avail. By the time morning came and the young man knocked softly upon my door, I was in no mood or condition to keep my word. However, as I had given it, I wouldn't renege. I don't know what that word is. Only half conscious, I got dressed and went out to the car where he was waiting for me. I was rather surprised that he didn't have any luggage. But we pulled out of the park, he asked me to stop where another young man was waiting to hand him his packages and traveling bag. Then off we went to the bus terminal. "Thanks again for helping me with that awning," I told him as we said goodbye. "That's okay," he answered. "This lift more than makes up for it." Then with a friendly wave, he was off with his bundles. Having unwittingly driven away from the park without locking my trailer door, I hastened back as fast as I could. My head was spinning. All I could think of was the robber. What if he had seen me leave? What if he knew the children were alone? Would he take advantage of them, perhaps even harm them if they didn't cooperate? Sick with worry as well as sick with fever, I reached for the park in record time. Right by the pool stood a police car, complete with officers. Something had happened in my absence. Several trailer folks were talking in a group. "What happened now?" I called to them as I pulled to stop in front of my trailer. "You ought to know," one of them said in a strange voice as an officer came toward me. "Know what?" I begged, now completely confused. By this time, the gendarme was at my side. "All right, where did you take him?" he asked. "Take who?" I asked stupidly. But then, suddenly, everything was clear as a bell. The young man, the packages, slipped into my car around the corner from the park. "Oh no," I groaned. "You can't mean that he was the thief." "That's exactly right," said the officer. "And you drove the getaway car. So now, if you'll cooperate." Fortunately for me, no time had been wasted in returning. The moment I told him the name of the bus terminal, the call went out, and my helpful friend was apprehended, clearing me as an accomplice for his crime. An hour later, when all the loot was returned to the park, I was heartbroken when I saw a small, empty, multicolored cloth bag. This had once contained David's treasured foreign coins and some silver dollars. "Nice fellow," said the officer, handing me the bag. "So he even robbed you, too. Do you want to, press charges?" For a moment I looked at my little son, who had joined us and was gazing at the empty bag. Before I could answer, Dave had answered for me. "If I'd known he wanted my coins, I would have given them to him. Please tell him they were a present from me and Mr. Tweedy. Barely able to hold up my head, even so, I felt as tall as a mountain. Dave had loved his coins. With all my heart, I hoped the young man would get my son's message. That ends the reading of chapter 26 of Mr. Tweedy. Tune in on Monday for chapter 27. Next week, we will be able to finish this book, which we have been reading. It contains 30 chapters. That means 30 nights of reading Mr. Tweedy to you all. The story has been pretty cool so far, hasn't it? The story of a little bird who's... Oh, Lisa is pressing buttons now. Nice. So the story of a little bird that guides this family, protects this family, looks out for this family, and is being cared for by this family. That this little bird has taught them so much about life, so much about each other, so much about getting over the bad things in life and going for the good. This little bird has also taught him a lot about God. David, from the beginning, was talking about, to his mom about how this little robin was telling them about God. And that's pretty cool. So anyway, that's this end of chapter 26, I forgot for a moment, of Mr. Tweedy. So let's end with a bedtime prayer. Holy God, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving us all that we need, and please comfort us when we are downtrodden. Lord, as we go to bed and tuck ourselves into sleep, help us to know that we are loved. Help us to know that we have a God who listens to us, who understands us. And Lord, please be with us in this next day. Help us wake up feeling revived, refreshed, and ready to take on the day. In Jesus' name, amen. So, that ends the reading for tonight. Have you guys seen my dog yet?
This is Allison. I mean, I personally think that she's the cutest dog.
Now, has she helped me as much as Mr. Tweedy? I don't know. I think so. No, I know so. But the fact that a robin helped a family so much, that's pretty cool, I think. So anyway, have a good night, folks.